Mrs. Patterson,
Present.
Mrs. Pender,
Present.
Mr. Brown,
Present.
Mr. Browning,
Present.
Mrs. Walker.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, approval of the minutes. If you want to take a few minutes to look at the minutes and suggest any changes if there are any. Anybody need any more time for the minutes? Do I have a motion to approve the committee minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. So, looking at the agenda, I would like to change the order to look at the sustainability portion first, followed by the African American Achievement Policy, and then last, the report card, if we have time to do that, if it doesn't get tabled or something. Could I have a motion to change the order of the agenda?
Can I ask your reasoning for the order, changing the order?
Because I think that one I have a lot more notes on, and then there's something that comes up I want to think about that have me some concerns with the first one, the first item.
Do you think it'll be more lengthy?
Yes, much more lengthy.
I'm sorry. Oh, forgive me. No, I asked Mr. Browning his reasoning for wanting to change the order.
Yeah, and I said what I said. I said that I have more notes in the first item that the sustainability policy. I'd like to attack that first, and then while I'm thinking, there might be something that I might have to push back on that first item. So then the question goes back again. Did I get a motion to change that order?
I'll make a motion to change the order.
I second that motion.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Before we move to this first one, which is the sustainability policy, I think, at least for myself, Dr. Moore, are there any principals in here? I see there are some we don't know. I don't know who that lady is, but I do know the one in the green. So if they could introduce themselves, Dr. Moore, so the committee knows who they are.
Good evening. I'm Marika Burnett, proud principal of Dodgertown Elementary.
Nice to meet you, Ms. Burnett. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Police Bagley, also proud principal of Dodgertown Elementary.
All right. Very nice to see you. Thank you. Okay, now, you should have with you this sustainability policy that came up. It's got a little bit of red on it. I don't know if you got a chance to, I sent the final one today. I brought a copy for everybody. You got some copies? And I have all of them for everybody? Wow, thank you. These are just my notes of things that I thought that we could discuss about. Now, if I understand this policy correctly, and you can correct me, I don't know who you're going to send me to, Dr. Moore, if it's going to be Mr. Seymour, or Dr. Shafty. This policy is for after we obtain unitary status, and it's to sustain the unitary status, and it has been through or presented to the board once already, and it is supposed to come back for a final vote or something like that. Is that correct?
Through the chair, it has been workshopped with the board. That is correct, and the board approved at the meeting before last to send it to public hearing. So it has appropriately been notified to our community. After a 30-day window has closed, I will bring an item back to the school board and conduct a public hearing, which would afford the community the opportunity to provide the school board feedback on this particular policy. So this policy has been given to the board, sent for public hearing. Once they go through public hearing, they make a vote to modify, change the policy, or approve the policy. If the policy is modified in any way during or following that public hearing, then we would repeat that process for another 30 days and come back for public hearing.
Okay, and so it might be kind of safe to say that there is a little bit of time in the fact that we are not near unitary status as of right now. So we do have time for suggestion or change.
Through the chair, it is a policy that is a proactive, proffered by Dr. Jones, who is here tonight. This was her item that created or initiated the development of the policy.
Mm-hmm.
It is not time-specific in when unitary status is achieved, but it is a policy that will be in place once that time has arrived.
All right, thank
Never
you.
it may arrive.
Thank you. And let me say that I'm definitely in favor of a sustainability policy for unitary status once the district gets it. That's Ms. Barenborg and who?
That is
Another picture.
Dr. Lewis, who is our Director for Student Services.
Okay, thank you for joining us, Mrs. Barenborg.
Thank you.
Dr. Lewis is in the building.
And of course, Dr. Jones here. So, as I was saying, yes, I am highly in favor of a unitary status policy, but in A, I kind of was just making some notes. It says mentoring of new African-American instructional staff. All new hired African-American instructional staff shall be offered, something is kind of blacked out here, with opportunities to support the knowledge and acquisition of designing learning environment to its, something, educational needs, diverse student populations. But I added this in there. I don't know where that would go, but I think if we're going to have a sustainability policy, it should be somewhere along the line that administrative staff shall be required to have trainings that include managing a diverse workforce, just like I think you guys do annual sexual harassment, bullying training, all of those. So I think that is when you let people know up front, then you don't have to put out fires at the end. I'll go down. I just don't want to go first. I don't want to feel like I'm bullying the meeting, so if somebody wants to stop me and they have something else, and you can go. In B, you see I added where efforts shall be made to recruit and maintain a diverse workforce representative of the district student population. You got to give me 30 seconds on this one. My real boss is calling me, so it might be. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's my wife. So when you take a sit through.
So, okay, I'm back. I'm sorry. City manager calling, and if he's calling at night, I better answer the phone. All right, so it said recruit and maintain a diverse staff. So if we get the numbers to where they are and equal opportunity as to where it needs to be, I think it's, and it might just be redundant that I put those red words in there, but that's what fell into my mind. C, representation of African-American instructional staff. All instructional staff of the district shall be employed and assigned to work locations in a non-discriminatory manner and shall continue to reflect or increase upon the goals of the approved joint plan. So that hopefully what I'm trying to say is encompass all areas of every school. That's none are going to be racially identifiable and whatever else is encompassable in that. On the next page, G, extracurricular activities. Given the importance of extracurricular activities out of valuable expenditure of school resources, participation shall be regularly reviewed and needed action taken to ensure that African-American students are able to access and participate in extracurricular activities in a non-discriminatory manner. Sports areas will be listed by students and coaches to ensure that there is equal access to sports. So, when I was the equity coordinator in the office, I kept a list of the coaches and the students. I don't know if you have that now. And then somewhere it was like a complaint mechanism for if somebody felt like extracurricular activities were not being treated fairly. I think we had, I heard of one earlier this year. I know that there's always, and I don't know where it is now, but there's always something with cheerleading. That has been an issue at the bigger high school for 20-plus years, so I don't know if it's changed. But there should be a reporting mechanism, and there should be a monitoring of that, access for students to education. C, ensure that they're, under superintendent commitment, ensure that there's a clearly defined channel for individuals to submit concerns related to educational disparities or discriminatory practices. Copies of those concerns will be provided upon request to the Equity Committee or NAACP, whichever committee or both, because my concern is if that were being done, we wouldn't be sitting here tonight. So there's always some kind of, used to be, some kind of cover-up, and you never found out where things were happening when kids were not getting access to sports or anything else. Complaints alleging discrimination shall be reported to the superintendent with a notification to the board chair. We might have a superintendent who is fair, and takes care of things, but then you might get somebody who is not on that spectrum. And at that point, if everything just points to that superintendent's office, the board never finds out anything. And in my policies in the city where I am, all complaints of discrimination come to my office. And when I get them, I send them to the city manager, so I let him know what's going on. So I think there needs to be some kind of notification so that it's just known. Then, under the Unitary Status Sustainability Work Group, truthfully, I had an issue with the superintendent's Unitary Status Sustainability Work Group, and it's not because of you, Dr. Moore. It's any superintendent that sits in the chair to take ownership of it and to say, I can do whatever I want to do with it, because this is the people's case. This is the people's tax dollars. This and it's not the superintendent's school district of Indian River County. This is the school district of Indian River County. So I added in there in that box, the board shall direct the superintendent to create the Unitary Status Sustainability Work Group. So it's not driven by the superintendent, who will be selected by, just like the Equity Committee is today, the school board and the former party NAACP at the annual organizational meeting. And the way it was written, I think, was unacceptable, because if the group is selected by the superintendent, is mostly under the superintendent, they have a vested interest in doing exactly what the superintendent tells them to do, and whether or not that's a superintendent that runs afoul of everything or the superintendent that keeps everything just correctly. And I think that would result in regression, going backwards the way we were. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And if there has to be a watchdog for everything and everybody. Fort Pierce PD has a citizen police advisory committee. And I think other police departments and other places, maybe the sheriff office has one too. An advisory committee, because the police don't police themselves. Well, they do, but there has to be an outside entity that looks in. And when we're dealing with this situation of such grave importance, I believe that there has to be input from the committee. The work group will make recommendations on how to best support African-American students and historically underserved communities in the district. Work group representatives will be appointed for a one-year term. You got to be one really smart hammer knocker to step into a job and know it after 1 year. I think there has to be continual learning. I don't think that 1 year is long enough for any person to be familiar with all the aspects of unitary status, of equity, of desegregation issues. We've had this desegregation order since 1967, and there are a handful of people who are quite familiar with the deseg order in 50 years. So there's no consistency for improvement if it stays that way, and I would recommend to keep the Equity Committee in place. Call it a police advisory, not police advisory, an advisory group, whatever name you want it, but it's still got to be a group made up of, I think, of more than just people who work for the district, or more than people who are handpicked by any one person, whether what level you're on. If you're thinking about a president or the governor comes in and handpicks his cabinet, they're going to do exactly what that person tells them to do. So, and then on the last page, one of the things I saw that says that this policy shall remain in place for 5 years after unitary status. So what happens after the 5 years when, and let me just say, I believe in a policy, in this policy, but policies can change with the board, and strategic plans can change with new administration. So it really needs to be in the agreement, in whatever the unitary status agreement policy, whatever we're going to call that, but it should be beyond this. The policy shall remain in effect for 5 years, so in 5 years, we'll go back to wherever we are, or wherever we were then. And that's just totally unacceptable to me. 5 years, a lot of things happen. And if it were that easy, you and I would not be sitting here today. So those are my thoughts right now. Anybody else, any committee members have any thoughts?
I would just say, the process is well-intended. I feel it's somewhat premature. We have not come close to achieving unitary status. I concur with the fact that 1 year is ridiculous because all the nuances and all of the situations associated with the DSEG order, and I'd like to put something on the table. We have minimized the process by referencing the DSEG order. The Indian River County School District since 1967 has been in violation of the civil rights of African American students, teachers, and administrators. So let's take it back to what it really is. It's a civil rights issue, but we have minimized it by making it a DSEG. So my thought process, if we look at that through that prism, we can get a better understanding. Racially identifiable schools, I was concerned about that. How do we do that? And then you were saying extracurricular. There are certain criteria embedded in certain extracurricular activities that within themselves are systematically set up to eliminate certain kids, and mostly kids of color, where you have to be a part of the travel team, you have to be a part of this, you have to do, your parents have to work with the concession stand, all these little underlying things that, you know, is problematic to some kids. I think certain aspects should be more profound, more definitive. You know, it's the district's plan, you know, and they do what they want. I also concur with the fact that it should be the board's plan, that the board, even with the DSEG order, it's the board's. It's the Indian River County and the board. And so I think as we progress, if we progress to unitary status and we move into a sustainability, it should be something more of a court-mandated apparatus rather than the school district has the whim to do as it please. I think personally, and I've expressed it previously, I think the joint plan, if it's made better and it's a court-mandated joint plan, it would be better served. And I concur with you on the 5 years. It should be infinite. It should not have a shutdown date, because if you look around the state of Florida and the 64 counties that have went to this notion of unitary status, I call it a figment of their imagination, all of them have regressed. They have gone back to the status quo. I mean, so if we don't have, and it's not reference to the superintendent, you could have the best superintendent in the world, or you could have one that just going through the motions. So we won't put that pressure on the superintendent to have the final say-so, because as you stated, if my paycheck is beholding on my upward mobility, or my success is predicated on the superintendent, then I'm going to do what he wants me to do. It's just human nature. So I think the plan, Dr. Jones was awesome in putting it forward. I said it's not where it should be. It's premature because, as I stated, I don't see where we are ready for unitary status at this moment. So you're putting the cart before the horse. So that's my 2 cents.
And I wouldn't mind that card if it had stronger, I mean, but the plan, just some tweaking. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So my question is, are you submitting these revisions on behalf of the committee?
These
or
are mine,
For your,
and if you agree, then we can let the superintendent know and his team.
Through the chair, as you discussed, this item now belongs to the board.
Mhm.
It has been approved and put out for public record. So my recommendation is any individual thoughts, or if the committee comes up with a recommendation as a committee, that information be shared back with the board. And the board would direct me to put them in or to go back to workshop it. This has been workshopped from the staff's perspective, given to the board and approved for public record. So the onus is on the board to receive information to direct my next steps. So this feedback needs to be received by the board, whether individually or as a vote through the equity committee, shared in one voice of, going back to them.
Do you know what that date is for the next?
I would, if it's not the 28th, it'll be the first meeting, guaranteed no later than the October, and I'll get the exact date.
Okay, and, tell you what, I think about this board sometimes, and it's the one of the best educated boards that we've had as far as education, in my opinion. I mean, principals and people who know education, but I do have a caveat to that, when it's workshopped, some of the things that they may not have seen that Mr. Brown or those in the committee, in the community have seen. And I've seen where things are in policy at one time and then they come back and disappear. And I'll talk about this, like when I first came into the equity office and when I was executive director of HR. Principals were hiring in because they were hiring to meet the goal, hiring in black employees at the end of the year, non-renewed. So there has to be a catch-all to kind of look for those types of things that happen. And so these are not just suggestions just to play around with stuff. This is just, and if you have it somewhere else that administrative staff have like on diverse training, then it doesn't need to go here if it's already in there. I don't know, is that in a part of the annual training? Does anybody know if it's part of the annual training? Diverse staff, managing a diverse staff. I know we have sexual harassment, because I remember somebody skipped it and got in trouble.
There's a series of developments, as you know, that are annual. I do not think one of them is specific to diversity.
Yeah, and diversity doesn't just mean black and white. It means how to handle students with ESE, how to handle poor students, how to handle just students who might look down and don't look you in the face. Ruby Payne's poverty. It's all kinds of things with managing a diverse workforce. And so I think that somewhere along the line should be in there. Yes, sir. Ms. Walker, you were going to say something?
No, I wasn't.
Oh, okay. And we don't have to have, I would like for us to digest this tonight and think on it and see, and what you, put a check on what you agree with, because we'll take a final look at this, if not in a week or a few days, and come back. Dr. Jones, yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Browning and Mr. Brown. I appreciate your comments. If you remember back in June when I talked about this, someone who's been in the community a long time, and I knew it wasn't going to go in before we reached unitary status, but I just wanted to be ready when we did. And very good comments, and these are the kind of things we need to hear before the board comes back on this. Especially the one, this will be for 5 years. We want it to live on and on. We want it to be embedded in what we do every day. And when you were talking about the training, I took part in Ruby Payne. We did that at Gifford Middle for a while, and a couple others. But I don't think there's one that we have right now that, works with all the diversity that we have, especially for principals and teachers. And if I'm wrong, principals, correct me. But we want to get this right. That's 100% sure. And I know Mr. Brown wanted us to wait a while, but I still, because it is out there, give us all the information we could have, and then the board can decide on where to go from there. So when it does happen, we'll be ready. Because once it's in policy, it's something that I, as a community member and former educator here, I want it to live on. And the barriers that we have talked about, Mr. Seymour and I have talked with extracurricular, man, we're trying to hit those, because what I found is not only do the students, there's pay to participate. Now, every AD we've talked to said, we're not going to have a student that they can't go. But you've got some who don't even try because it's so expensive, so we've got to reach out and pull on that a little bit more. We've got work to do, and everyone understands that. But your points are good, and we'll probably get some more input from others because that's out there. But, we'll wait till we get it right. But don't let go of it. Hey, Mr. Brown, look at me. Here you go, buddy. Don't let go of it. Whenever it needs to go, we can go. But we just got to hang in there, and because I want it somehow to get in there when we get unitary status.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Yeah.
Very much appreciated. Looking forward.
So I do,
Yes, Ms. Barenborg, hi. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, do you mind?
Oh, no, go ahead.
I hope I'm coming through okay. Couple things. I know that the policy seems pretty early, and I agree with you. I think it is a little early, but I also think, having been on the board now for, I don't know, almost 3 years, that sometimes we put policy out there and we tweak it, and revisit, and it takes a while until it's really good policy and a policy that can be sustained. So I think that we're going to be looking at this quite a while to make sure it's where it needs to be when eventually is put in place. So I'm not worried about that part so much. I agree with you about diversity training. I have been through lots of diversity training, and I needed to. When I worked in Garden City in St. Lucie, of course, I went through Kids of Hope training out in Phoenix. And I'm going to tell you that was probably one of the best trainings I personally have ever attended. I learned so much that I didn't know, and I have worked with underserved populations most of my career. So I think that we need to look at more of that training, but I think the policy is a good start. To give feedback would be great, because I think we're going to keep revisiting this.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I
Thank
agree
you.
wholeheartedly. Thank you. All right, so we will be, yes,
This
ma'am.
policy comes back to the board September 28th.
I'm sorry.
September,
Oh, the next date is September 28th?
yes, sir.
Okay. All right, so we'll have to try to, and I guess if it's going to be tweaked, then that won't be such of a hurry, but we'll have some suggestions in, and I think we might have to call it something, what is today, the 16th? In a few days, we can get back together.
One of the last things I would say is to the board, they might put an asterisk, because talking to some attorneys, board to board is not obligated to accept any policies set forth by the previous board. So I think an asterisk needs to be put into this process, because, as I said, Dr. Jones knows how I feel about her on a personal level, and I know it was well intended. But tweaking it and all of this, I think you got 53 years of a desegregation order, a violation of the civil rights of African American students, teachers, and principals and administrators, and you're not going to tell me that you're going to continuously tweak a process that can be as detrimental, not only to African American children, but to all children, because this thing, it's like throwing a rock and it ripples into water. So we have to be cognizant of the fact that we have to paraphrase civil rights violation. Let's stop minimizing the DSEG order. Let's realize we have violated the civil rights of African American teachers, students, and administrators for over 50-some years, and we have a policy that can't be binding, that can make us focus, but it also, if it's continuously tweaked, I need it rock solid. I don't understand why it can't be, a court-mandated policy to stiffen up the joint plan so that here's a court document that say you must. Not you can, you ought, or you should, but you must. Because I don't care if you like me, but I want some parameters where you must respect me. So that's just my take on it, because we're dealing with civil rights violations.
And I agree. heard this several times, that education is the new civil rights, and I understand that. Now, as far as policy, we do have to follow the policy unless the policy is changed. In this one, we were looking at a supermajority, 4 out of 5 to change it. But Mr. Brown, you are right. I don't know how that gets into a court-mandated policy. Maybe that is another discussion. But as far as policy, I have to follow every policy that's set unless it's changed. And there's a process for that, as Mr. Browning and everybody knows. But we're trying to put as much teeth in it as possible. If it has to be court mandated, and that's talked among the NAACP and the school board, understood. But just know that we want to do it right. We'll take a look at the tweaks. We'll continue to look at it, as Ms. Berenborg said. And whenever that day comes for unitary status, we want to roll. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Any other comments?
So when you say that we're going to reconvene soon, you're wanting us to review it and bring back more ideas or recommendations?
Yes,
So that
yes.
we can
I'd like for
present
you to
those.
have that homework
Sure.
tonight. If, because the further you put it off, the further other things will get in the way. So as soon as possible, if you agree with something that I put there, put a check by it. If you think it needs to be modified, change it so that, you know, and you've heard, you know, my explanations. If you have any questions now, I'll reaffirm those, you know, and, yeah, so as soon as possible, because when we come back, we want to, like the superintendent said, is give suggestions and have them ready to go to the board.
And,
And,
Mr. Brownlee, just to be clear, the NAACP has no problem with the policy because it's a school board policy. And as somebody so distinctly told us, we don't call the day-to-day operations of the school district, but it needs to be put out there that this is bigger than a little molehill it's a mountain. And if it's not perceived as in that degree of importance, then it can go quietly into the night. So the NAACP has no objections to the policy itself. The school district has the right, the authorization to do whatever they want to. So I just wanted to make that clear.
I really like the way that you position it as a civil rights issue, because I do think that I feel like it oftentimes gets lost. So I think that especially when we're looking at all the areas, when I think about our Brown students in our schools, it really is important for us to frame it so that sense of urgency exists.
I don't know if that guy could hear you. He was looking out. Can you guys hear? Oh, you need to click closer to the mic. I don't know if he could hear you.
That was the warning we typically get. If your mic is not on, it won't be captured basically in the recording, or those who are watching at home.
Thank you.
So I'll just repeat that I really do think that we need to do a better job at framing it as a civil rights issue. Our Brown students really do deserve to have equal access and opportunities. And I think that when you say it in that language, it really does make it clear that this is a violation and it needs to be remedied as soon as possible. And so thank you for pointing that out. I think we should use that language often.
All right. And as we transition to the next item, you know, you just said, you know, our Brown students, and of course, you know, and I don't want any people to get that misinterpreted ever. We love everybody.
Certainly.
But we're talking about Brown students right now. At the meeting that I was just at the school board meeting where it was all mask crazy, a lady sat next to me and reminded me that 10 years ago when I was in HR, I wrote a letter for her to help her do something with her medical or something. I completely forgot. I would say one of my white sisters, you know, she was a teacher at the time, and we just love people. And if everybody did that, it would be the same. So it's not this. We want to make it right for everybody. And this has been rejected for so long that now's the time that's dropped on your shoulders and mine to make it right. Okay, so now the next item would be the African American Achievement Plan. And if I looked in the right place, and I think you gave me the same thing that I looked at, it's in the, embedded in the strategic plan, right, Dr. Shafty?
Yes, sir. So this year, we infused the African American Achievement Plan within the district strategic plan, so we could focus intensely on goals to meet our targets. So if you have a copy of the document, you will see it is not lost in there. If you're able to turn to the first focus area on page 9, you will see that we have academic success, we have annual targets, we have annual strategies, and on the subsequent page, page 10, there are clearly defined strategies as they pertain to the African American Achievement Plan, as well as targets. It mirrors that structure throughout the entire document.
Okay. Is there a connecting document to this one?
Through the chair, a connecting document would be the specific plans each department writes for me. So when you look at the strategies that are listed in our strategic plan, those are the annual targets for both the strategic plan as well as the African American Achievement Plan. And just a little bit of history, we went through a process when I first came in and transitioning with Dr. Moxley. Job number one was the creation of an African American Achievement Plan. It was in the joint plan, which is the direction from the judge based on what was collectively agreed upon between the two parties, and the district had not fulfilled that over the first year of implementation, and we were going halfway into the second year. So it was something that was glaringly wrong and not completed. We quickly created a plan, put it into place for the previous school year. So we approved the 2019-20 plan in February, I think, which should have been done prior to the first day of school. We then created the next plan for the 19-20 school year, not anticipating the pandemic, but it was created and approved prior to the start of school. That plan was implemented. It was the 120-page document that I don't think anyone was in favor of or liked. We went through a series of workshops in the creation of it. And as we implemented the work over the course of the year, we found ourselves as an organization being pulled in two different directions, implementing the African American Achievement Plan and then implementing steps that are in the strategic plan. We also found a great deal of overlap, and part of our work, as much as we want to minimize, it's just part of our work, is capturing in compliance the logistical work that needs to be done so we can document how that work is being done. Having to do that once is bad enough, but having to do it twice is unacceptable. So as we move through the process of creating this year's strategic plan, over the course of a school year, I provide 4 annual updates, not annual, quarterly updates to the school board on the African American Achievement Plan, on the district strategic plan, and on my evaluation system, which is 100% aligned to our strategic plan. Over the course of the year, feedback that I consistently received is to increase the level of alignment between the two plans, to minimize or heighten or deepen our focus in very specific areas. So what you see here is the attempt to align to that request from our board to create a strategic plan that connects the two bodies of work and ensures as we move forward, it's never forgotten. So kind of a theme for the night is unitary status. And unitary status, whether it's months away or years away, we need to have a strategic plan that doesn't separate it as a priority, but ultimately embeds it in a priority. So what this does is a couple things. It aligns the work. It allows us as an organization to take a deeper focus on the right things. It minimizes the redundant work of compliance, which we do not want to be a part. And it becomes part of my evaluation system. So no longer am I just accountable to this board to my strategic plan. Now that they are embedded documents, it becomes ultimately part of my evaluation. don't know how you can take a more hardened stance on something being a priority by saying, evaluate me on it. Continue my employment based on the attainment of these annual targets. That's just a little bit of history. The attachment document, each of the assistant superintendents oversee an office. Every office, every area of the system is covered with one of those offices. They create their own specific plan on how they're going to address the annual targets and strategies through their particular office. And that work is something I sit with them on a monthly basis through a series of different meetings to monitor their progress, to determine any shifts or modifications that need to take place in order to ensure that we capture the desired outcomes.
Okay, all right, thank you. I want to give you a few seconds to, not seconds, minutes if you want, whatever, to glance through the African American Achievement Plan here. So I want to give you a chance to stop right there and go back, but you have a document that looks like this. It says at the top, Goal 1, graduation rate. It's probably the last thing in your folder. Somebody help Mr. Brown, he's lost. Okay, we were trying to come to your rescue there. All right, so take a couple seconds and look at that document if you would, please. And then think about, while you're looking at it, the comparison of the other one. And it's not really a comparison, it's a, can we improve something? It's not a race or a... I'm ready when you are for any comments or observations or,
Is this a district that's comparable to our district as far as demographics, financial, socioeconomic status, district size?
it's a diverse district. It's much bigger than we are. This is Pinellas County, you know, over in the other side. What side are we on? We East Coast, they're on West Coast, over near Tampa. But, you know, I hadn't thinking about what I'm focusing on is the baseline, the targets, the annual goals, but that would be nice to look at the demographics too. I think they are quite a mixed district. All right, so in the very middle you have here, at the top middle, well, first of all, it starts out with action goal, eliminate the gap between the graduation rates for black and non-black students. And then they got the goal managers. But right in the middle, it says short-range goal, increase the graduation rate for black students and decrease the gap by an average of 1.8% each year. Then it has a long-range target, increase the graduation rate for black students each year with the goal of eliminating or greatly narrowing the gap within 10 years. So that's their long range. And then go back over to the far left, I'm backwards, current condition, or I'm everywhere. Pinellas County Schools has a current graduation rate for all students of 80.1% and a rate for black students of 65.5%. The district has seen a 10.9% percentage point increase with the graduation rate among black students since 2012, with an improvement among all students. So what I'm really looking at here is you have almost like, when you look down at the chart, first one, number and percentage of black students who graduated on time with the standard diploma at 4-year senior cohort. So that was 932, it was 65%. So you have a baseline to look at. That's where we started out. So then the target, they want to get it up to 67% by the following year. 2017, 69%. So with a protracted out kind of, I'll call it a spreadsheet for lack of a better word. I'm not a data analyst like some people in the room. But you have a baseline and you have targets that we'll meet as far as what we're going to. Now, yes, go ahead.
I
Dr.
apologize.
Shafty.
Just for comparison's sake, our strategic plan on page 20 has baseline, as well as annual targets and a 5-year long-term target.
Okay. So you've got each school go ahead, take me through it then.
So are you going to? No, check you out.
So if you look on your left column, you will see our 5 strategic plan goals, and then embedded within each of those goals, we have that measuring statement or that measurable statement, with 1920 being our baseline year. Then we have the outcome from last school year, and we have a new target that we've set. Some of the targets may have been revised because we met our target sooner than expected. So instead of remaining
Hold on,
status.
slow down, sorry.
Yep.
So explain that. So this one, what do we see here? African American, white, non-Hispanic, gap, ELA state ranking. Baseline 45, what does that mean?
45th state out of 67 school districts.
Okay, well, I'm not concerned about school district ranking. Maybe it matters to some, but what we want to know, what we care about is how are these African American students doing? So where do we see that, like a graduation gap or something?
The graduation rate gap is just underneath that.
Okay, let's go through that, please. African American, go ahead, I'll let you.
So the way that the document is structured without reading it to you is each of these are in direct alignment, what you see on the left side, to our strategic plan. So column 1 are goals, goal statements, what we're seeking to measure. Your next column, baseline, 2019, 2020. That's our starting year. The outcomes based on last year, the school year, not calendar year's data, is in 2021. Then 2022 will be our short-term, our one-year annual targets. And that's what I was sharing, that some of them, we made progress sooner than anticipated. So instead of leaving a previously set target, we raised the bar and adjusted those targets. And then a long-range target in year 2025 is also listed.
Okay, so what, who put this together? Is that Brian?
Through the chair, this is a by-department initiative. So it's not one person creating the plan in isolation. It's sitting with the various offices and departments looking at what are the strategies that have the most significant influence on increasing very specific data points. So it's creating data points over the course of or throughout the organization to identify where we need to improve. And what we've done is create a plan that looks at where we were in 2020 and then set very aggressive targets in 2021. Now, we set and compare ourselves in some of the areas to the other 67 districts. So why do we do that? Because the reality is, over the course of the next 2 years, the way in which accountability is captured throughout the state is going to change. FSA no longer exists in the state of Florida once this school year finishes. It's been eliminated by our governor, which is a good move, by the way. So ranking ourselves to the state or to other districts allows us to compare. I'll give you an example. Going into the pandemic, there was significant regression across the United States, significant regression in the state of Florida for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
When you look at our state rankings, we actually improved 5 rankings in ELA in comparison to the other districts. What that does is assess how we mitigated the impact of the pandemic through different instructional models. Matter of fact, in 7 of the 8 categories from the data set released from the state, we actually improved significantly. Then we have, going back to the plan, so we have the annual targets that take us out for a year, and then we have a 2025, which is the 5-year target. The updates that I provide to the board happen on a quarterly basis. So I give a presentation during workshop to the board, and then ultimately takes it in a business meeting, and it looks at what has been the progress each 9 weeks of the school year, where we started, what we have achieved, where we are struggling, and what modifications would be, and then allows the board in real time, with enough time for the organization, myself, to respond to bring about the appropriate change needed to attain the outcome. That happens 3 times a year. Of the targets that we just finished, even in the midst of the pandemic, we either met or showed progress in almost all areas, So you're seeing a very strategic plan that's being implemented across the organization. It's the flow of the work. Every dollar spent goes back to the district's strategic plan. Principal can't spend a nickel without identifying how that is aligned to the district's strategic plan. So it's a very, very aggressive plan. I look at Pinellas's plan, and it looks very similar to the plan that we were encouraged to go away from. I look at Pinellas's graduation rate, and they got a lot of catching up to do in terms of where the school district of Indian River County is in comparison. I think they were up 5 percentage points below where we are in terms of graduation rate.
When you say encouraged to go away from, who encouraged and what do you mean?
The school board, the ongoing conversation, principals, the amount of compliance of having 2 different documents, pretty much everyone in the organization.
What do you mean 2 different documents?
We had a strategic plan, and we had an African American Achievement Plan, 2 different driving forces. I think it's not a surprise to anyone in this room, the attention that I put on both plans and the level of accountability and monitoring the system, quite honestly, has never seen in order to ensure that work gets done. And the amount of capturing that particular work and driving two different plans was more work than we needed to create for ourselves. So by simply combining them and ensuring that there is an overlap in terms of the priorities, we were able to minimize and take a much deeper approach on things that have higher levels of influence.
Okay. Do we capture like the graduation gap in this plan?
Yes, I do not think you see you will not find another superintendent in the state of Florida who is evaluated solely on the district's strategic plan, and although no other districts have an African American Achievement Plan, but we do.
No, I mean where we can read it in here.
There may not necessarily be the gap, but it is broken down in Section 2 around both performance as well as graduation rates for all of our different ethnicities that we have.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I have one question. I'm old school, and so I'll say, Johnny in ninth grade, do you have a matrix or somewhere? Oh, Johnny's in ninth grade. His, I guess it's on.
You're on.
His GPA in ninth grade. According to this, I would want to watch Johnny 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade. Is there a mechanism in the district, not by data, not by statistics, but that I can individually assess, you can redact his name and all of that, where I can see this perceived increase? That Johnny in ninth grade scored at a 63. Maybe he scored at a 69 in 10th grade, or he scored at a 70. I'm old school. Where's the beef? I want to see the beef so that I can determine in real time, not statistically, but in real time, is that little African-American boy, Johnny, progressing, or is he caught up in numbers? You know, that's my thing when you look at this and Pinellas County, because it says, one was the percentage of black students who graduated on time with a standard diploma. See, that's the one I'm going to, a standard diploma, not IEP, not this, not that, but where he can go into the real world and have an honest chance of matriculating and getting into a profession of doing something and being a constructive citizen, not that we could say, well, we graduated, you know, or they moved up. I want to see in real time what Johnny did in ninth grade, what Johnny did in 10th grade, what Johnny did in 11th grade, to validate that the achievement gap is being eliminated. That's what I'm looking for in the document.
So, through the chair, significant improvements in graduation rate. The state only records a standard diploma as a positive graduation code. Our African American students last year, graduation rate of 90%. 90%. That captures, and both the numerator and the denominator are increasing. So it's not increasing by subtraction, it's increasing because more African American students graduated. If Pinellas is the bar, then we've set ourselves at a very low bar. It's 85%. I'm not old school. I am effective in terms of how you drive this organization. The second you put a number on a piece of paper, it's old. All the data in this organization lives in one source. And we can monitor, as I met with my cabinet today, and we can go through a student when he was suspended, who suspended him, who wrote the referral. We can pull the number of referrals. I can call the principal and says, tell me why this teacher has written 22 referrals. Of those 22, 18 are African American students. Tell me, I can tell you right now what the graduation rate for Vero Beach is going to be right now. Same thing for, and they're going to see significant increases, especially at Sebastian River High School. So principals have access to this. assistant principals access to it, instructional coaches have access to it. We drive instruction through data. The plan we just approved last night for how we deal with masks is solely based on data. You will not find a district who does a better job with the data sets that we have, who is more current in making decisions based on that data. So the information is all available. We act in real time. This plan is not what Mr. Brown just captured. And he's right, completely entitled to that specific information. But if you focus in on the numbers and not the practices or the behaviors that improve the numbers are never going to change. The success that I've had, whether it be here or in other places, is focusing in on the adults, focusing in on the people who have the most influence on improving the lives of children. Guide and drive what the adults in buildings are doing and how they're doing it. Give them the information, give them the knowledge, give them the power and the authority to make the appropriate decisions, and you're going to see a district that transforms. And quite honestly, pause, step back, and look at the progress the system has made in the midst of a pandemic. In the midst of a pandemic, still showing significant progress. So I just want to be clear. This is a plan that we have created that drives the organization. And we do it in a way that most districts should be envious of. Stop short.
All right, so. Go ahead.
I have questions just about semantics. And I wanted to look, I'm looking under equity, culture, and climate. I noticed that there are the rankings for the achievement gap and the mathematics. Those are under equity, culture, and climate, but there's an ELA one under academic success. So I just wondered what that was about. Yes, sir. So under equity, culture, and climate, we have ELA state rankings and mathematics state rankings, but then over in academic success, we have ELA state rankings there. So I just wondered why those weren't all together, why those weren't all academic.
So in academic success, we're looking at the individual performance, and as I think it was Mr. Brown, we just said that, where's the gap? We see that in the equity, culture, and climate. We're actually comparing ourselves in terms of the gap, and looking at the gap between equity, culture, and climate looks at the gap, which is ultimately the standard way in looking at the opportunity for us to close the gap.
Okay, what I'm saying, so if you look at the first line under academic success, and then if you look at the third line under equity, culture, and climate, I think those are the same. If they're not?
No.
The numbers are the same.
I think we're gonna have a mic thing now.
So one is in the orange, that are the students scoring proficient. I'm sorry, level 3, 4, or 5. The blue is the gap, the delta between white students and black students. That is the difference. Now, the standard measure in terms of improvement may be the same, but they are different metrics, looking at different sets of criteria.
Okay. The language is exactly the same. The words are exactly the same, and so are the numbers. That's why I was just wondering. I see it on both, on the top one, and I see gap on both.
Do we want to capture what she's saying in the audience? Because if she's speaking from out there, we can't, the microphone's not going to pick it up.
Oh, she's on African American Achievement Plan, right?
Yes.
Yes, because, so the reason why that's in both areas is because in the area of academic success, we're implementing strategies to decrease the achievement gap for students. So we're looking at that. And then in equity, culture, and climate, we're also employing different strategies to also address the achievement gap. So what we're hoping is if we do things like ensure that we're providing the proper behavioral supports and ensuring that we're identifying kids that are showing early warning indicators and intervening with those students, that will also address the achievement gap between African-American students and white students.
Thank you, thank you. And then, I just wanted to also know what how we decided what goes here, because just for me, with some of the work that so I'm wondering,
What page are you on?
on page 20.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, so we have, for discipline, we have one or more out-of-school suspensions, we have classroom removals. I'm wondering just even about office discipline referrals. Just how those metrics were determined, I guess is what I'm asking.
So those are metrics looking at where we wanted to be by 2025 and then benchmarking out over the course of 5 years. And then as Dr. Shafty said, there were some modifications or changes because either up or down based on last year. So in some areas, we superseded our performance. We did significantly better. But because only 62% of our students were actually here when school started, that's an inflated achievement. So we still benchmarked it out over the course of 5 years. In other areas, we think we have sustained that work or the behaviors that led to that specific outcome. So therefore, we kind of held ourselves to a higher standard and then modified them. But it's simply...
I believe I understand what you're asking. Why one or more suspensions versus measuring referrals?
Right.
That's what.
Or both.
Why, how did what we're measuring be determined? How did column 1, how was that determined? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're not going to answer it? Just gonna ask me. Because these strategies are the ones that we think have the highest influence on improving the overall outcomes, whether it be behavioral or academic.
You know, maybe I'm just thick-headed, but I don't concur. I don't think this is definitive. I think strategies and all of that. I'll just go back to something as simple as I said earlier. Where's the beef? I would like to have some way of validating all of this besides just saying a strategy. I want it substantive, something that I can touch, feel, and understand that is making a difference. I hear strategies. Strategies got a community, an under-resourced, impoverished community of color such as Gifford at the brink with illiteracy and a whole bunch of other stuff that we're going nowhere fast. So in the realm of, I want substance. I mean, maybe I've been around, but I've watched. I was a part of the first integration class in Indian River County, and I've watched it for these 50-some years. So strategies are not working for me. I want substance. I want to see. I want to touch. I want to feel. And I often say, I can get a document and make it say anything I want it. I want to, as I stated, a matrix where follow what is going on in real time. Don't show me what you perceive, what strategies, because some of the strategies may not benefit my children. Some strategies may not benefit all children. Are we experimenting, or are we just, compiling numbers? I can't tell from this. I'm not comparing us with Pinellas County. I'm comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges because I see the effect or the ineffective of happening in my community, if happening with my children. I see kids dropping on the wayside because the system is not working for them. They don't feel a part of it. And I think I mentioned several folks. Take a walk with me through the streets of Gifford and talk to some of these kids who are dropping out of school because they don't feel a part. They don't feel that they're being, the strategies are not working for them. You know, so I don't know. I want some substance. And this document, it's a good document, I guess, but to me, based on some knowledge that I have, it's not relevant to a lot of the problems associated with African-American children in Indian River County. That's my take on it. So I have a problem with it. It may be good, but I have a problem with it. And I think it's a discussion that we need to go a little more in-depth in instead of just battering around with it. And because, I mean, the numbers, they're not telling the whole story. You know, they're statistically telling a story. They're not telling me that my children are failing. And in the pandemic, as I stated in the previous equity meeting, some of our children was turning the computers off. So I don't know how the numbers changed drastically. When I got people telling me that they didn't even know how to do the process of the computers because they were not apt into doing the computers. They were not computer savvy, so they couldn't help their children. You know, I'm concerned. You know, I just have a problem with the numbers. The way it's done, maybe somebody can explain it to me. I don't know, but it's confusing to me, and it's not relevant to what I see happening in real time on the streets of my community.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me to give my pitch on
Please tell me your name again. I forgot already. I'm
Aretha
sorry.
Burnett, principal
Burnett,
of Dodgertown Elementary.
Yes, ma'am.
And I love pushback. When we solve problems at Dodgertown, pushback helps us get the refinement that we need in order to get some of the products that we get for our teachers and our students. So when I come to a district, this is the first thing that I look for. I need a strategic plan because everything that I do needs to be aligned to that. This tells me what I'm supposed to be doing as a principal. One example was addressing equity as it relates to our students being pulled out of classrooms. If they're pulled out of classrooms, then they can't get the instruction. And what was happening when we first came in, there was such a disproportionate number of African American students being pulled out of classrooms. Well, when I looked at the plan, when Dr. Moore came in, it was, his vision was 0% of students being pulled out, African American students, close that gap. I took that serious. Okay, this is the direction that I'm looking for. 0 means 0. All means all. I need all of my students in the classroom. As a result of that guidance and direction, last year at Dodgertown, and I'm going to knock wood, we had 0 students suspended out of school or in school. The directive from the superintendent is, before you suspend one child, you must seek approval, and his designated person was the deputy superintendent. So to me, it was like, okay, here's my direction, here's the expectation, it's clear. And that's what I had to push down to my teachers. And also, it is a real thing to change adult mindsets. That's what happened at Dodgertown. When we first came in, we had teachers working very hard, and we had students working very hard at closing gaps. So we got very great at closing gaps. So when we got our school grade, we were able to survive and hang in there with a lot of other schools with a grade of a C because we were getting our points from learning gains, closing the gaps. So now the strategic plan tells me not only must we close gaps, we must get our students at levels 3, 4, and 5. We need to work towards proficiency. So at principals meetings, we go over the strategic plan and the expectations from the superintendent. And so we take it serious. Last year was a hard hit. We started the year with only 44% of our students back at school. And our parents were afraid to let their students come to school. Apparently 56% of them. So then we got the different instructional models to react to that reality, as the superintendent would say, that was happening at that time so that we can reach more students. And then it was the expectation, hey, Aretha, I got that call. You only have 44% of your students. Look at this other school. They can do it. They have other schools, so I love a challenge. So it's like, okay, tell me what to do, because I hadn't thought of that. Oh, I can actually go and recruit my kids back. And that's what we started doing. And a lot of our parents was like, okay. And then we had some that like, no, I'm not going to send my child back. This is all I have. This is my precious resource. So then I had to share different instructional models with those parents and try to reach them. And it was very clear the expectation that was set forth, like you need to go call your parents. And even this year, when we had non-responsive students, it was, you need to reach those students. And we dropped whatever we were doing, we divided it out, and we reached our students. But getting back to the point, I got very nervous when I thought I was going to lose this, because I've been in a district where there was a change of leadership, and this wasn't in place. And I was asking for it, where's the strategic plan? Because I was charged with school renewal and working with documents from the state, and the state is saying everything that you do has to be driven by your strategic plan. Now, whether or not it needs to be tweaked or updated, it would scare me to lose it. So this is what tells me. So if you can somehow impact it, if you need to, if you think it needs to be refined and made better, I don't know if we can always start out with a finished 100% product off the shelf, because we'd be waiting forever to get it to 100%, but we have to start somewhere, and this somewhere has changed a lot of expectations at Dodgertown. We have teachers who set the bar low in the past at Dodgertown for our students, and we had teachers that raised the bar. We had to shift mindsets, and what I mean by that, I had teachers come up to me and say, oh, they can't do this. These poor kids, they can't do this. Yes, they can. And my favorite phrase is, demography is not destiny. So their demographics right now doesn't tell or determine where they're going to go in the future. And if you don't believe that they can't do it, then that means you're not going to do one thing, one action step to help them do it. So in our principals meetings, they make it clear about culture and climate and the difference between them. And this is what I had to relay to the teachers. This was the expectation, to tell our teachers. The picture that I'm thinking about that they showed us, we had so many meetings this summer, so I don't remember from which, but the training, the training still had to go on. So there was an iceberg, and of course, what you see above water and what you don't see. There's so much more to the story. So what we were charged with getting back to our faculty was the culture, your belief system, what's happening that people don't necessarily see what's going on in your mind and how you think and what you believe about my students. The climate is on the outside. It's the temperature. People can take a temperature check, the things you say and you do. If it's your belief system that my children can't do it, and I know you're not going to do it, and we had to teach another thing, collective efficacy. What I'm hearing is not that my students can't do it, you don't know how to help them do it. So if you don't have the efficacy or feel you're effective enough to do it, then you better have collective efficacy. You better pull on your team, my leadership team, all of our stakeholders to get it done. So I see it as a cry for help. I don't know how to do it, and I told them, don't ever come to me and say my students can't do it. Tell me, I'd rather hear you say, I don't know how to help this student, help me. And I feel like all of that is supported by this plan. I need to know what the district expects of me. And if you impact that plan, then that means I know what you expect of me as well. I feel like I'm repeating now, so I think I'm done.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
I like this. I've, since the day you showed up, I've been in your cheerleading squad.
Thank you.
And, but I want to say something, you know, is you came and took a racially definable school
Yes, sir.
before you ever got there. It was the joke of the district. People were running from it.
Mhm.
Now, is it the plan or is it your leadership?
I say it's both. Because I can't lead, well, I can lead, but I am charged with leading based on the expectations of this district.
But I heard something in your conversation that is not in the strategic plan. How you put certain beliefs, certain factors, certain strength, a mindset. A strategic plan is not a mindset. It's telling you this, but you have, in my opinion, from watching you and observing at a distance, you have taken it to a different level. I'll use the analogy of moonshot moment
Yes, sir.
and reading. Phonics versus reading comprehension. You teach a kid phonics, and back in the day when I was in school, and you probably remember, we said they were calling words. Because after they
Yes.
finished, you asked them what they read, they didn't have a clue.
No comprehension.
And that's how I perceive,
Mhm.
you know, what you do and how you do it. You don't, you know, you take it to a different level. So that's why your mindset instituted into that vacuum has made the difference.
I appreciate
That's my
that.
opinion.
I appreciate that. I really do. But I would be remiss if I didn't say I didn't have the leadership and the expectation coming down. And I appreciate, just like teachers have academic freedom, and I have expectations on them, some of them meet my expectations, some of them exceed them. Dr. Moore has expectations of all of us. There's things that he says behind closed doors to us, you know, we better get it right. You know, I won't say exactly what it is, but it is definitely there. When we are in that principals meeting, there is there's no room for doubt of what he expects of us. Now, we do have different talents in the ways that we get it done. Some of us meet his expectations, some of us exceed them. But he does have high expectations, and I do accept the compliment. I do receive that. But I wanted to make sure also that people know the good things that are happening at Dodgertown. We just had an impact review, and it's up on Twitter, all of the people that came out from district to support continuous improvement at Dodgertown. And a lot of times they come in there and they're looking around and they are just astonished. They are expecting our kids to be swinging from the rafters. And they're just like, wow, they're sitting down. Yes, they're sitting down, they're learning, they're thirsty for knowledge. And we keep improving it. And they're not easy on us when they come in to collect data on us. And we keep up with the data.
Are
They
you
give us that
inviting us to come
feedback.
out and see it?
Is my time up?
No, I said, are you inviting us to come out and see it?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, yes. Great things happening at Dodgertown. And our ratings keep improving. Our teachers, we have amazing teachers. They work hard, our students work hard, and I keep, just as the expectation is hard on me and what they expect at Dodgertown, I'm hard on my teachers. I want them, I'm supportive of them, but I expect no less than the best for my students at all of my students at Dodgertown. And I don't know if there's another question.
No, just a comment that if,
What we just saying right
everyone. My name is Ramon Echeverria.
Yes.
I'm the principal of Felsman Elementary. And the point that you just mentioned, that there was something that you capture on her that you haven't seen in the strategic plan, you mentioned mindset. And when you look at here on page, I think it's page 18 that we have here, you could take a look at the guiding principles that are here. So when you take a look at the guiding principles that are there, those are the mindsets. Those are the belief systems that we have to have in order to make it happen. Is it difficult for all of us to be in the same mindset? It's always a struggle because we're dealing with human beings. But the ideal, that tension between what it is and where we need to be, this is what guides us, the guiding principles. So those mindsets that you were looking on her, that you were able to capture on her, are here in the guidance that we have in this strategic plan. So I just want to reiterate that papers sometimes are empty, but we have to have something that guides us. So it's here, but it has to be put into practice. And yes, indeed, I agree with you with that, but that's an effort that has to happen. So there are areas, but the guiding principles, you could read them all there. That's what drives us. That is the intensity, that is the belief system, this is the mindset, this is what we should be doing every day. Would she be doing it in a different way that I am? We will have different intensities, different levels, but hopefully we're getting closer and closer to close that gap to have that mindset that transform the district. Just wanted to share that piece because it's
but
important.
I do hear what you're saying, and I took notes, and I'm trying to find ways of making sure that we make you Dodgertown proud when you all come to visit our campus. Definitely, I hope that you'll be able to feel, see, hear, and touch if you come to our campus and see what our students are doing. We're not perfect, but that's what we're striving for at Dodgertown.
And I'm not to get into a debate,
Yes,
but
sir.
I still go back, not with you,
Okay.
but about mindset. This is not my first rodeo,
Yes.
and I know this district upside down. And that is not permeating this district. I could tell her some stuff about some backlash that she knew nothing about among her own teachers. But she stood the course. So it's deeper. And I never bothered you. I just spoke
Right.
to you one day and told you I heard that you were doing great things.
Right.
But I was proud because you didn't know what the undercurrent was.
You are so right. When I came to the district, I was at a juncture in my career, and I didn't know why I was coming. And I started to turn it down because I had spent 26 years in my district. I had not burned any bridges.
What district is that?
St. Lucie County, and now Indian River County is my district.
Okay.
And had I known what I was coming into, I wouldn't have come. But because I trusted God and I got here and I saw what was going on, then I knew. I was like, okay, God, this is why I'm here. And then I was happy that I was charged with that responsibility. And I feel like we've made the changes that I'm proud of. I get my intrinsic reward from that. And when you said, someone, explain it to me and I was like, okay, here's my chance. This is how this document is meaning for me, and I just wanted to share that.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate everything that you said. You spoke from your heart.
Yes.
And again, when it's not just empty words, when it actually manifests into the culture and the climate and the response to the level of instruction that your students receive every day, that's what makes it real. It's not just talk, it's things that you have put into action. And again, you see the manifestations of that. I agree that this is a multifaceted, this is a layered issue. It is not an issue solely the responsibility of an educational system. This is only one component of that. So I completely agree with you. When I go into the neighborhoods and when I see my babies at school that are hungry or have the trauma, I live this every single day. I see it every single day. I implement these strategies and these practices every single day. So it's not just a piece of paper. This is my life. This is my work. These are not cliches or empty sayings or empty nothings. This is a day-to-day. And it does take some type of foundation, some type of guide to lead the work. Now, can we, again, I know everyone is sick. I mean, we say this ad nauseum, but tweaking, that's what we do in education every single day. I respond to my data on a daily basis, and I make changes to my instruction and my strategies to create effective change in my students so that I effectively educate them every single day. If that's changing a group, if that's changing the pacing, that's what we do with data. And that data does change from day to day. In a classroom, in a block, it changes from moment to moment. So what I'm saying is, as passionately as I possibly can, let's take what we have, let's implement effectively and faithfully what we have, monitor that, and make the changes like we need to as we see fit. But we have to have something, or else we're just marching round and around the mountain, not accomplishing anything. And I say that with everything. I want to see this work move forward. It must move forward for all the reasons that we've mentioned tonight. We have to see, I want to see my babies read. It pains me to be in a small group with kids and they can't even blend simple sounds, simple letters. That's what we need to, that's our focus. We can talk about mentoring. Yes, it's important. We can talk about recruitment. Of course it's important, but I want to see my babies learn. I want to see effective practices in place so that they are fully educated, so that they reach their capacity. So my question is, how are we going to do that if we continue to argue about the format of a document, about the strategies? We have got to do something. We've got to light a fire, and we've got to do something. But arguing this ad nauseum is a waste of everyone's time. And time is money. It's a commodity, and if we can't get it back once it's gone. So I don't know if there needs to be thresholds put in place so that once we come to a threshold, then we make a decision as far as if we need to continue to monitor or if we need to change something. I don't know what that is, but I know that there needs to be something. What is it?
One last thing, I don't want to, like I said, I love pushback, and what Mr. Brown is saying to me, this is what happens in our Tier 2 meetings, in our Tier 3 meetings. We track every single student. We need to know how they are doing, yes. Not just the students who need remediation. Now with our expectations from Dr. Moore, students who need enrichment, yes. We have to do that as well. How are they going to continually improve? Closing the gap doesn't mean, I heard him say, having those students who are high achieving wait while the other ones catch up. That's not how you close the gap. You have to push all of your students up and close the gap. So we track that data of all of our students at Dodgertown. We know where every single one, so that resonates with me when he says that. Mm-hmm. You can't, when you track every single student, you can go home at night and rest peacefully because you know you're serving each one in their own way. So there is benefit.
I thank you for
yes,
that.
Sir.
I was going to say, relative to where's the data? Yes. You can give me the data. I can come to Dodgertown and I can do Johnny and walk through Johnny with you. Because this is what I'm talking about. The data, you will be able to show me in a matrix what your children are doing. Not statistically, not in a spreadsheet, but you can show me where Johnny is moving. That's all I'm saying. It's data driven, but I want to come to you and say, Mr. Brown, here it is. You can retract their names, but the data that I'm going to show you is where he went from point A to point C. And I can walk you through that. Not give you a lot of jargon, not give you a lot of statistical this. I can, in real time, based on the data that I have available, because I'm following each of my children, show you Johnny's progress.
Yes, sir. And with all due respect, there's an expectation
board's taking that off the table with this new monitoring system that we have. I don't know if he's mentioned it, if I'm allowed to mention it, but it's definitely, if they can't do it, then I think they're gonna be in trouble. Now, I use his system, but I'll pull it too, because I'm old school too. I still pull it.
Yeah.
And it's
the old
still
school,
accurate. I mean, if there's
more
one
effective.
a number off, then I'm calling her, like, okay, she's a troublemaker. And it's like, thank you for helping me approve the system. It wasn't that I'm a troublemaker. They actually receive it well. It was just something that was programmed, and equal sign wasn't there. It was just the greatest.
Oh, you're not near the microphone again. There's stuff that we
Oh,
can't
you
hear.
did.
So she won't need it right now.
It is there.
She's all, I'm gonna have to cut her off. I see Miss Ataba looking at her watch like me. I'm about to run out of Coke, so we're gonna be on the move.
Neither is good.
So, Ms. Vernette, thank you very much. So nice to meet you.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you
on
for your
behalf of
input,
the kids
Mr.
you
E.
serve.
That's right.
Thank you. Just a quick, over your left shoulder, there's a lady with a, I don't know, who is that lady? Yes. Okay, Dr. Paula Lewis.
She wasn't online, she was upstairs in the meeting.
Oh, okay, all right. Just a couple of things. This is, somebody keeps saying, oh, you know, I'm trying to compare. I'm not comparing Pinellas to Indian River. I'm looking at the readability of the format. This is not incumbent on us to look and say, okay, we have an African American achievement plan. This thing it's in a court system, it's a court document to make sure that it is doing what it says we're supposed to be doing. Because we say we're mentoring or we're recruiting teachers, if we got 35 teachers coming in the door and 20 go out at the end of the year, we haven't done what we're supposed to be doing. So, and it's not, I don't consider it arguing back and forth. The job is to make sure and monitor, according to that joint plan and document, that what's being said is being done. Now, let me also say that, yes, Dr. Moore, thank you. I've said before, I've seen more action than ever before out of, and expectations from staff and from the district. But make no mistake about it, there are still some holes. And while we're there, let me mention one of those that I sent to the board I talked about African American teachers being upset at a school. Mr. Seymour was sent out to take a look at it. So I say, okay, what was the outcome? Nothing. If you got teachers walking in the door, and then when somebody takes over a school and you have mass exodus of your black teachers to another school, there's a problem. And you can say, okay, you got this many teachers, but how many of those teachers left? So it's not about arguing over a document or semantics or comparing ourselves to Pinellas. It's about not glossing over issues, changing mindsets. And yes, that's happening. Mindsets are being changed. But in a sense, don't pee on me and tell me it's raining, because I'm going to check. And when I was asked to come to this committee, I didn't want to deal with the headache of Indian River County again. But I was asked again and again, so I said, okay, I'll come and take a look at it, because my kids are here. And for 50 years, they're probably my grandkids, if I got grandkids, whatever, they're going to be here too. And it's going to make everything, have to put the effort in it to make it better. So when I ask about that, for instance, I'm looking at the readability, because when I look at this, if you flip this next page over, just flip it up like that, it says number and in the Pinellas, number, and I'm not comparing Pinellas to them. I'm talking about readability. I love the document. A lot of work is gone into this. It's great. Number and percentage of black students in high school, grades 9 through 11, with level 3 or above on the ELA assessment. 530 of those, that was 21% from the baseline, and then moved on up. all of that is in one area. So it was easier to see. And maybe the answer might be that the expert on this document can show us how to read it. So when we come back the next time and we go through the PowerPoint, and if whoever, this one right here, that'll be placed up there so that when we go through this, we can say, okay, yes, this has been met, or it's been some improvement, and it needs to get better. We need to be able to understand what we're looking at in order to put a grade on it. So that's my intention of the Pinellas document and looking at this one. So we can decide how to go forward from there. So that being said, there was a graduation rate, and that is addressed in here on some page. That was my initial question. And we can come back to that later. I think we'll have some more questions now that some have been generated. At this point, I'm gonna go home and have a cool glass of something. But I do thank you for your time. I think I'd like to table everything else. Well, if I could get a motion and
So moved.
adjourn. All right, there's that motion, there's a second. And so I've given you a hint of where we'll go for the next time. Some of these agenda items will be, we'll have a couple more questions. But I did see where Miss Christofuli, what is the number, Miss Christofuli, 35, 33? 36. Hired teachers, 13%.
So if I could just capture that in the microphone, I think the question was, the overall percent of instructional staff is 13. Just to give that a little bit of perspective, from the year 2020 to 2015, there were 29 African-American hires, which is 10 more than the previous 5-year set.
Yes, sir. You're on page, what page?
Oh, I'm just reading data that I have available.
Okay.
From 2015 to 2020, there were 23 hires over the course of that 5-year period. In the last 18 months, there's been 34 hires. So moving to 13%, these obviously are whole numbers that I'm giving you, to move from 9 to 13 over the course of 18 months is significant, and the credit and praise goes to Ms. Christofoli. I got to think every time before I say it correctly. Her leadership and drive and support of obviously our principals to identify a priority and begin to see that movement. Still work to be done. Still certain schools where I would like to see it move in a more drastic direction, depending on openings. But Ms. Castafoli works as, you know. See, I didn't think about it.
Castafoli.
Okay. It's not Facebook Live, I can't redo it. But it's a very clear focus to be specific at certain schools and not only grow one school, but multiple schools. So, as I said, that work's not done, but it is great leadership moving that in the right direction, while at the same time managing hundreds and hundreds of student COVID cases every day with our principals. So outstanding work, but Ms.
Thank you, sir. Outstanding, yes. And like I said, you know, we're going to be looking at that next time and looking into, you know, making sure that, you know, some of the holes are there, and we'll probably have a couple of questions about, you know, the schools that really needed the focus, and was there improvement in there. And don't mistake my comment regarding Mr. Seymour as anything else other than the mindset thing, because Seymour is outstanding. Those people were willing and ready to talk to him. He knows how to communicate with people. He knows how to get to the root of the issue, and I think he's, you know, a great asset for the school district.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Chairman, yeah, it was an experience. You know, we did hear that there were some rumblings and some issues that needed to be dealt with. And if you did not know, that is my position too, as far as all of the principals of our county, whenever there are issues, I'm the person that they normally call on to help resolve those conflicts. Many of the teachers that did speak at that facility, some were isolated and others were directly related to administration, which we did work out. And at some point in time, if you would like me to expound upon that, I will.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'd like to be briefed on that. I think when people have some kind of difficulty, they need to have a channel to express that difficulty. They need to know that somebody has listened, and if they were wronged indeed, then something needs to be done about it. And if it was just their perception and it was not true, then maybe that's a conversation that needs to be had too. So either way, and I just say, do unto others as you would want done unto you. So if you have an issue, you want somebody to hear you out, and that's what we are here for. And so I think we have now, once again, Dr. Jones, thank you. Love you much. Thank you for everything you've done and still do. Mrs. Barenborg, thank you for attending. And who was that new person? Somebody else is on there. Oh, that was her.
She's back there
Oh,
now.
that, okay. Miss Lewis? Dr. Lewis. Very nice to meet you, Ms. Burnett. We'll be coming by to visit if that's okay with the superintendent. I met a real tall guy the other day, and almost as tall as Mr. Seymour, and he said he was the principal at Oslo. Didn't know who he was. And so I'd like to, at some point, stop by and see some of those people and just chat. And speaking of Dodgertown, and we looked at, I'll have that on the agenda one of these days, whereas I'm concerned with some of the, just to let you know, the heads up, the facilities, that they are all maintained to the same level. Dodgertown and Gifford were looked at some point a little less than desirable. I know there are construction crews that were working out there, but you know, facilities are supposed to be in unitary status, but if they drop down, do we need to talk about those again? And I think it's a working issue. And I appreciate all of you guys here for doing the work and putting the time in, because Indian River County can be, should be, and is the best place around, and we can make it better. Yes.
I just want, before we close the meeting, because this is public record and it is being viewed hopefully by many at home, I just wanted to make mention of our school choice extravaganza on October 9th. That's super duper important. Spread the word, get it out there. There is going to be a shuttle, I believe, right, Mrs. Emerson? Is she present? I think 3 shuttles, GYAC, I think, yeah, Sebastian and Fellsmere. Does anyone else have any more information that would be pertinent to? I just wanted to make sure that the parents, everyone in the community, as many as possible, know about that extravaganza for school choice. There she is. She can tell you all about it.
Yes.
Yes, we're really excited. We have expanded it to include our community partnerships as well with Dr. Kawi. So thank you so much, Dr. Kawi, for organizing that component of it. But we will also have breakout sessions that will be taking place throughout the day. And so we'll have sessions from the ESE department, parent resource sessions that are both in English and in Spanish. Dr. Moore will be presenting Achieve 2025, some of our goals for our district. So parents can come on out. There'll be free face painting and lots of little treats, cookies from our health and food and nutrition department. But we really want to get all of our families out to hear about the choice options so they can pick what is best and in the interest of their children. So thank you. We're very excited about it.
And what date is that?
It is October 9th, and it is from 10 to 1 at the IG Center. And once again, we will have shuttle pickups at GYAC, Sebastian River High School, and Fellsmere Elementary. It is on the website as well. Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. Now, we had a, yes, ma'am, Mrs. Dampier.
Choice Fair is to coincide with our open enrollment, which will start on November 1st through January 15th. And we'll have additional information on that at the Choice Fair as well as on our website. Something will be starting to be put up next week, advertising that.
And that's open enrollment for what?
For our magnet schools as well as any other schools, parents can put in their choice application. It's all online now.
Okay, thank you. And it was Mr. Burks, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, very nice to meet you. And you're at the district office?
Yes, sir. Yeah, definitely working with the district, be able to with the district side, so through different schools. So definitely honor and a pleasure to be here.
All right, thank you, sir. Nice to meet you. All right, so we had on the table, I don't want to leave anybody out, the lady in orange. Who is that? Okay. Rojas, okay. Okay, I know you from the district. Yes. All right. Okay, thank you. Oh, all right, yeah. Yeah, I see.
Can we have Dr. Patricia Cowie stand? So, you know, she was called. I just wanted you to know who she was.
Yes, Dr. Cowie. She's community involvement, right?
Yes.
I want to let you know, I'm the new parent and community engagement person, and everything that we do in connection with our plan and with our vision and with our new mindset. So as I'm going out and talking with our community partners and thinking about this parent programming that's already starting to really get going, and we're really excited about what's coming up starting soon. We are focusing on the needs of all of our families, and specifically on the needs of our African American families within the district, and what would make that accessible and relevant. And so we're not only conducting surveys, but we're also looking at the history and any barriers or anything that we can eliminate and make sure that they come to the table. And we're starting a parent engagement advisory council with our first session coming up next week. And we're really excited just to have input and involvement from everybody in the district, and it drives everything that we do.
All right, thank you, Dr. Cowie. Thank you very much. So we had it was a motion and a second. It was already seconded, and then we had some kind of discussion, but let's call the roll on that. All in favor of tabling and ending this meeting?
Did you want to schedule a next meeting?
I'm sorry.
Schedule the next meeting. Schedule it.
Schedule the next meeting
Or just email?
via email.
Okay.
All in favor of going home? Aye. Opposed? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.